Okay, so I think many of you are aware that Donald Trump very recently just threatened Mexico and Canada and China with tariffs, specifically 25% tariffs to Mexico and Canada for all products coming into the United States. This would be pretty devastating for their economies, considering they are top importers to the United States and there's a lot of trade going on back and forth. Well, Mexico has actually responded, and their response is rather interesting. It's like they want to work with the United States, but they also kind of threaten the United States. Okay, so the president of Mexico does want to present a formal letter for the United States or to the United States, essentially saying we do want to work with you, but her immediate comments to Donald Trump's 25% tariffs, caravans of migrants no longer reach the border. This is good, but then she states, maybe President Trump doesn't know this, but of those arriving at the border, which is significantly fewer, 75% less than in December of 2023, half of them have a CBP one appointment. In other words, they have an appointment. So they, the U.S., are the ones inviting them to come to the United States, she said. And I also want to note, by the way, this is not even a knock on Donald Trump from the president of Mexico. I think she's trying to be cordial with the United States. This is kind of more of an insult towards Joe Biden because everybody who's voted for Donald Trump, to include Donald Trump, he agrees with her that the United States essentially does invite everybody to come to their country because of catch and release and so on. But the president also stated this: if a percentage of what the United States spends on war were dedicated to peace and development, it would address the underlying causes of migration, she said, advocating for regional investments over punitive measures. Now, no disrespect to Mexico, but you could say the exact same thing to them. I think they have their own internal issues, which is really the cartel, and this is what Donald Trump wants to tackle, and this is why he's putting more pressure on Mexico, because they never took the situation, or they were never serious about the situation to try and go after the cartel, because half of the government seems to be bought out by them. Nonetheless, again, at least we are seeing somewhat of a direction of peace or a cordial relationship between Mexico and the United States. Again, Donald Trump said this is more of a threat of the 25% tariffs. It's not necessarily going to happen. If Mexico shows that they are going to at least try and help, I don't think we will see the tariff.
But now we have a new president in Mexico. Supposed a very nice woman. They say I haven't met her. And I'm going to inform her on day one or sooner that if they don't stop this onslaught of criminals and drugs coming into our country, I'm going to immediately impose a 25% tariff on everything they send in to the United States of America. And it's only got a 100% chance of working, because if that doesn't work, I'll make it 50. And if that doesn't work, I'll make it 75 for the tough guys, and I'll make it 100.
What would this mean for Mexico's economy if these tariffs that Trump is talking about were to be implemented?
Oh, it's an existential threat. That's why there's such a good negotiating tool. They worked for Trump under former President López Obrador. It does seem like this time, the way he campaigned, it's more likely that he wants to implement tariffs, that tariffs are the point and not just a negotiating tool. But that, again, might be just another element to give them credibility. And he'll be facing a very different president, very allied to López Obrador, Claudia Sheinbaum. But she hasn't been tested on the world stage. She does have an experienced team. She's very educated. She knows, she speaks English, which López Obrador didn't. That might be an advantage for her negotiating with Trump. But it will be a test, and it is an existential threat for Mexico's economy.
Yeah, it feels like she'll definitely be on the world stage now.
Oh,
I mean,
she's going to be thrust on the world stage, whether she likes it or not. Yeah,
and just because Mexico, it feels like that was a pretty big policy towards Mexico, was a big part of Trump's first term. And so the second term, it's not just immigration, right? We also hear a lot about fentanyl coming over the border, cartels, etc. Do you think Trump is going to make any moves in that regard? What do you expect to see there?
I mean, on your first point, when he came in last time, China was our top trading partner. Now it's Mexico, like bigger than Canada, bigger than China. So that relationship is now important to the American consumer, at least, if not to the American worker, because of back and forth trade.
Right.
Anything that he does to counteract organized crime in Mexico, if there is going too far, where the Mexican government will recoil. And obviously that's any sort of military action on Mexican territory.
Sure.
I think Claudia Sheinbaum would be ready to toss that economic relationship, that trade relationship that is the core of Mexico's economy, to avoid that happening, to avoid sort of U.S. military action on Mexican territory.
Now, look, the main takeaway here is this is not meant to cripple the Mexican people or to destroy our neighbors. The United States and Mexico have a great relationship as far as culture, as far as food, as far as working together as nations, as far as trying to protect one another. Again, so I don't think Donald Trump is just trying to destroy that country. That country already has its own issues. The U.S. has its own issues. But when you look at the data and you look at the stats, the cartel is a massive issue for the American people. Even if you haven't been affected by it or you don't have family members who have fallen to illegal substances that came from Canada or from Mexico, I would look into the stats, because even Donald Trump's organization keeps putting out there, look, more Americans have technically died by the hands of the cartel from these illegal substances being sold on the street. And they're getting here really by one route, to the south down in Mexico and up through Canada. Now, there's a lot more details to it, but again, my main point is I think Donald is really just using this as a threat just to get Mexico in line and make sure they're actually doing their job with security and so on. So anyway, let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think Mexico is crazy for threatening Donald Trump? Do you think Mexico will actually impose sanctions on the U.S.? Let me know.